we started it off with Forbidden Door, man.
Shoo.
What an incredible show that was in New York on Long Island. You did the pre-show, man, just a barn burner of a main event. Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. My goodness, you've seen the progression of Swerve in AEW. Certainly think a lot of Will Ospreay and kept an eye on what he was doing over in New Japan. But what did you think of that main event, Jeff? That was something else, wasn't it?
You know what? And I didn't want to interrupt you there because I thought you may be wanting my comments on that match specifically, but I thought the event, it was great. I've said it a couple of times here on My World. The man, the Billy Goat, Willie Ospreay, his athleticism is just at a different level. You see, you just see different athletes come along, and they talk about when Michael Jordan got to the NBA, how good his athletic ability, and he could go out and score 30 or 40 a night. He didn't really become that MVP until his defensive skills and came kind of the complete package. LeBron James, we could talk about all kinds of athletes that just their athleticism sets them apart. To me, that's where Ospreay's at right now. His athleticism just makes him a cut above the rest. That being said, and he's coming. He's still a young guy, and I'm not saying he's not the complete package because he's, title after title in Japan. But as far as the American style, the tools are definitely in the toolbox, and the progression is coming. His in-ring ability obviously is there. I just think his notoriety and his persona, and it just nothing replaces time in this business. But Swerve isn't, on the other side of that, go back and look at the matches. When I was doing the research, and shout out to Alex Marvez, who helps with quite a bit of the research and the different matches and rematches and all that kind of stuff. I think that in a lot of ways, that match is going to go down as a defining moment. I think going into it, going to be a defining moment for one of them. I think coming out of it, Conrad, it could be a defining moment for both of them because Ospreay didn't get the W, but I think he created new fans. I'll say that. And I think that's kind of what it's all about. But the match that just kind of took me aback, Conrad, is the Bryan Danielson match.
Oh man, that was something else, wasn't it? What did you think of that?
Well, and I wasn't super familiar with
Shingo.
Shingo Takagi. I think that's right. Man, what a story! What a match! What an effort! In the building, and I watched that live, as far as not through a monitor, and I actually changed positions and then was watching it in a group of people. But man, Bryan Danielson is special. He's been doing it a long time, but my goodness, he throws it all out there, and so I was super impressed with that. A lot of others, but man, 15 matches, 5 hours of wrestling. It goes without saying, you get your money's worth when you purchase a AEW pay-per-view. So yeah, Forbidden Door. That's right. So we didn't talk last week, so we got to catch up on a lot here. But Forbidden Door was super special for a lot of reasons. But for me, a lot of ways, the number one reason was the Bryan Danielson effort, if you will.
I know that you watch wrestling differently. You have to. I mean, you're not just a fan. Obviously, you're a wrestling fan, but you're somebody who puts together matches and does these performances. And I've gotten the vibe for the past several months that you really hold Bryan Danielson in high regard. As a fan and someone who does this, is he maybe the person who's still active in ring that you admire their game the most?
I did. I want to say at the time I was with WWE, and I did some media for them. I'm trying to think what it would have been for, or maybe it was during COVID. And anyway, a guy kind of flat out asked me, and I just the way he asked me, he said, "All right, we got nothing but time here." And we've talked off and on the pod here, but he asked me, like, what do you think? Who I think he may have said those words. Who do you have in the highest, with the highest regards? And I think and we'll get to it in a minute. I had a good phone call with King Jerry Lawler, and we caught up on some different things. And he actually watched last Wednesday night, Conrad. So we'll come back to that. And I, it's definitely how I was brought up in this business, but also the TNA days, just my entire career, looking at talent and looking at I guess really the complete package. I referenced Michael Jordan, not till he became a great defensive player, a great team player, a great leader. Did you really go, okay, he's the MVP without question? Because to me, there's nothing Bryan can't do. And I say that in that he leads by example across the board. You never, his effort is always almost to a detriment, Conrad. I think sometimes he pushes himself too hard when maybe he doesn't have to, but his ability to tell a wrestling story. I put Lawler back in his heyday. There's a couple of others, but Bryan gets out the proverbial pen and paper, and you have no idea what story he's about to write, other than it's going to be a Bryan Danielson classic. And the Shingo match, I've just seen him having with so many different opponents. So yes, modern day, current in-ring talent that are blowing and going full time. I put Bryan at the very top for multiple reasons, but it is his ability to, man, I sound like a broken record, Conrad. Boy, oh boy, his matches evoke emotion across the board. And that's what it's all about. He sells tickets, he sells buy rates, he sells emotion.
Speaking of emotion, I want to talk about the Owen Hart tournament. But before we do, I want to remind everybody that a friend of yours who knows a thing or two about emotion south of the border, he's going to be joining us live this week at adfreeshows.com. I'm talking, of course, about Sam Adonis live, who I guess has become a bit of a protege for you south of the border.
Mm-hmm.
He is not well liked or well thought of down below. And a lot of that, it's his association with you. And he's going to be live, as folks are listening to this, later on tonight at adfreeshows.com. I'm pretty excited because we're going to be diving into the world of Lucha Libre through the eyes of our pal Sam Adonis. He's going to be answering your member questions about CMLL, about AAA, about All Japan. I mean, this guy has done it all internationally. And I thought, hey, we should spend a little more time learning about Lucha. And who better to let us pick his brain than Sam Adonis? You've spent a little time getting to know Sam. What's your experience been like?
Conrad, you talk about somebody that I hold in very high regard. For those that don't know, a lot of folks know Corey Graves, the name Corey Graves. Sam Adonis and Corey Graves, brothers from Pittsburgh. Their father was an independent wrestling promoter, but Sam, got in this business at an early age. Lived in the United Kingdom, I think almost 2 years. And so I'll say he went from paying some dues, in the United States way, way, way back. And he admits this, he was signed to NXT probably too soon, too early. One of those stories. Timing's everything in this business. Then went to the UK, broke ground. And then here's where the story to me really got interesting. Moves to Mexico, and the CMLL dojo is, I think there's legendary stories about maybe Stu Hart's dungeon, or go to Japan and live in the dojo and learn things that way. And way back in the day, who was it? Brad Ranigan's trained to Krapa guys in Minnesota. But Sam went to Mexico and not just learned Lucha Libre, which is a different style in so many ways, but did the hard training and understood the culture. And then he's bilingual. He learned the language, and really, really has built his name down there. And I think when people I guess in the world we live in, you can almost buy into it, and you think, oh, okay, he went to Mexico, and that's lucha libre, and there's not too much connection there. But man, I can't say enough good things, and talk about not just good but great at what he does down there, because he can work. Um, he can work any style. That's what I'm saying. He can work any style. But not only that, he understands that and is a box office attraction, and creates revenue in Mexico. I got a ton of respect for that. And when he's the first one who told me, Conrad, that I think y'all had a side conversation a ways back. And I said, I think it's great because you're going to expose folks to a whole nother side of the ad-free in the ad-free family of the DNA of lucha libre. So folks, go out of your way to dive into this and listen to my man Sam, because it is, if you're a fan of wrestling, you will be intrigued, and I guarantee you, whether it's 5 minutes in or 35 minutes in, you're going to want to ask a question because he's that thought-provoking. It's good stuff, man. Really good stuff.